Since 2018, it included East Africa Philanthropy Network, and we partnered with Center for Philanthropy, CAPS, in South at Wits in South Africa. But still, we did not get into the depth. We did not get an inventory which will help us as an infrastructure to see how we can invite different partners to be part of this infrastructure, to be part of the transformative process. So with the resources from our members and support from Wings, we went back to it again because we need this inventory. We need to know who is where doing what in the continent. The continent, which is supposed to be borderless, but there are so many borders which are not even required. So we started to map again, listing names, contacts, countries, categories. So we started by working with some of the university graduates at the desk level to see who is out there. And we got more than 500 names. And really, when we said to our partners that we have these 500 plus names of philanthropy support actors in the continent, everyone really wanted to grab that document and see if they could make use of it. But for us, still, we say, no, we need to validate this document. Are these organizations or individuals still alive? Are they reachable? Are they still working in philanthropy? Because it is difficult to get more of the information on website. So we engaged with researchers and we were to engage in 4 regions. We had excluded North Africa, not because of the limited importance, but because of the resources, and the language was also another barrier for us. So we say we will work in West Africa, East Africa, Central and Southern. But for West Africa then, because they are working on ecosystem study, and now they have already declared they are working to establish a network for philanthropy in West Africa, they had a good map of who is a support actor in the area. So we said, we are not going to do the work again there. We are going to adapt that map, which came from the work that was done by our one of our anchor members, Trust Africa. And in East Africa, they were going to start to do this study, but at that time, the study was yet to start. So we partnered with East Africa Philanthropy Network to look into the desk review and validate that information to really confirm whether that data is reliable, to also talk to a few of them and confirm what is it that they're doing in this space. If they are providing any services, what type of service is it and to whom? What challenges are they facing and what are the opportunity for them to grow their support within the philanthropy landscape? So that is why you hear my colleague Tarisai mentioning East Africa Philanthropy Network, mentioning Ungweru Chieza, and mentioning the West Africa colleagues through Tarisai. I think they're not, through Vanessa, they're not able to be here today, but one of our staff who coordinated in West Africa, she's going to present on their behalf. After that, we went to the assembly with a need to understand better what are the opportunity for us to be able to understand this landscape and actors in it. So we had a conversation which brought together all 4 regions, West Africa, East Africa, Central and Southern Africa, to discuss about different initiatives that are taking place and who is really engaged. And again, who is going to be a strong anchor to strengthen the ecosystem in those regions. So the conversation took place there. It gave us some of the information. And today we are here looking into the work that was done by our very able and committed researchers. What are the findings in each region? What is unique in different regions? We have excluded West Africa because the work is a little bit far ahead there. But again, we really need to see what is their own suggestions for improvement of this product. And the product is the list, which is living list. which is a list that you can really grab and pick up a phone or a WhatsApp, make a WhatsApp, reach people through the WhatsApp messaging so that we can develop this infrastructure. And how can we then continue to work together to ensure there is a role for APN as a secretariat, but there is a role for every other stakeholder who is in these spaces to help that to maintain this mapping process, because there are many organizations which are either dying because of non-compliance, but there are others who are emerging. So the overall list of 500 plus and the work that has been done so far was the distribution of it is what you are seeing. So there is a bigger number that of philanthropy support actors, which is drawn from Southern Africa, followed by Western Africa and East Africa, and Central we have just a few. But that does not mean there are few organizations or actors there. Maybe it is our ability to identify more potential actors, and that is why we need your support going forward. I also want to highlight a list of, the category of all these 5,000 plus organizations based on the language that they are speaking, based on the services that they are providing. So we have seen networks and movements. We have made community philanthropy organizations and community philanthropy foundations. We have made not-for-profit organizations, international NGOs, civil society organizations, and faith-based. We have seen funds and grant makers who perform a different service than other organizations. That's why we could not include them somewhere in other different space. We have also academia and researchers, institutions, people, organizations that are providing that service in almost every country we have visited. We have professional bodies and associations. There are high net worth individual and private foundations in the Africa philanthropy space. There are banks, there are businesses in all different scales, from this medium to small to high. There are cooperatives in all different scales. But there are also tech-based or mobile money providers in this space. And there are government authorities that are authorized or are responsible to either support or guide the philanthropy development at the national level, the regional level, and the African Union level. So this is, in a nutshell, is what we had seen from the list which we shared with the researchers. And this is what we are seeing increasingly through our members. So today we really wish for those researchers to speak about what is specific finding from those regions. And we are still focusing on regions because of the context, because context-specific matter, but also we'll come to focus on countries, because if the issue is challenges, the challenges, these philanthropy support actors, they vary from region to region, from country to country, based on legislation and enabling environment to operate. So kindly help us to understand how best can we have an active state-of-art and living mapping of philanthropy support actors that we could share with everyone, for us to continue to connect, for us to continue to find ways to collaborate, for us to see how we can access services, but more importantly, for us to be, as APN, to be able to strengthen this infrastructure for philanthropy support actors and build hub and a solidarity movement around common agenda for transformative development in the continent. So I wanted to give this background because I think it is a very important background for you colleagues to help us to have an input on this. And I believe that we will be able to share what we have. We have a consultant who is helping us to put all this together, because there are so many of these other initiatives that are done at the regional level. So we as APN, if we start again to do things at the regional level, we'll be speaking the language that our members are speaking. So we'll see how to align what we are doing with what is done at the regional level, so that we give space to our members to continue with the regional level work and we complement each other. But also we need to develop now a catalog, which would say then, if I want to collaborate with someone in Central Africa, this is someone I could reach for to get tech-based support in Congo, DRC, for example, or to access mobile money services in this country, or to access blockchain services in countries like Rwanda, where it is very much allowed. So colleagues, welcome. Thank you for coming again. And through you, Tarisai, let me end here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tenga, for providing this comprehensive background. It really sets the tone of our discussion, and it really helps us to move forward. And I come from Zimbabwe, and in Shona, I would say what Dr. Tenga is saying in a nutshell is what we call in Shona, rume rimwe harikombi churu. Those who know Shona will understand that, but I'll translate for you. This simply means that a single person, no matter how big, does not encircle an ant-hill or ant-hill, as some might pronounce. That cannot be done alone. Or to emphasize that regardless of your strength, your intelligence, or any accomplishment, everything has to be done in a collective manner. No man is an Iceland, I would say that. So just remember that rume rimwe harikombi churu. And moving forward, I think you have all heard that this process has been going on for some time, but what we want is information that is really useful for us and for our partners and anyone who might use the directory or the catalog that will develop in the end. So I hope all of you today will help us to really develop a roadmap for the future of African philanthropy through the work that we are doing today. So without taking much time, I will now call upon Mr. Maurice Omonti, but he will just respond to the first question, which is focusing on, I just want to get an understanding of how he felt doing this work, and just one thing that he saw in the field that brought an aha moment, or that was shocking, or that was obvious for him. So this is a question that all the researchers will just respond to as we sort of meet them for the first time. So may you please go ahead, introduce yourself, and just tell us briefly what you saw in the field and how you felt before we really go to the deeper findings.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Just confirm if you can hear me clearly.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Maurice Omondi. I'm joining in from Nairobi. So I thank you for this opportunity, Tarisai, as well as Dr. Tenga, for the introduction. While carrying out this study, I think what comes out prominently, and even Dr. Tenga has already mentioned a bit of it, is still the continued dominance of foreign funding in the kind of works that we do. And again, the other unique thing which is coming in is that despite of that, there's a lot of several expressions about philanthropy in the different cultures. And I think the other general information which this study also just validated is that philanthropy has been in Africa, and it is manifested in different ways. It's only that when you say the term philanthropy, that looks foreign. But when you speak with people from the different countries, they basically tell you that this is something which has been going on. So moving forward, probably as we even use the term philanthropy, we've used Ubuntu, others, you realize that almost in every culture, there is a language which is specific to that particular culture. So yeah, I think that is what I found out, that it is not really a new thing. It is something which has existed over the years, but for many civil society organizations, there's been a dominance by funding from outside the country. Yeah, maybe that's what I can share for now before going into the detailed results.
Thank you so much, Maurice. I think we'll cross over to Central Africa and just hear what Vanessa's, was there an aha moment for you? How did you feel whilst carrying out this research, or any notable thing that you can single out at the moment.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Tarisai. Thank you, Dr. Tenga. I think I'm just representing the researcher who took part in this study. But one thing we realized was, I don't want to repeat the consultant from Nairobi, but that's a real problem in Central Africa too, the term philanthropy. People feel they are unable to understand or identify philanthropy in their day-to-day activities. Like when you ask them, are you into philanthropy or are you into any philanthropy support organization? The person is going to tell you no. Then when you go ahead and ask, what is it that you do in your organization? When the person starts enumerating, you start getting to know that he is actually doing philanthropy, but he's not aware that that's philanthropy he's doing. So there's a very big problem on embracing the term philanthropy. People are used to charity, they're used to giving, and often attribute philanthropy to high net worth individuals only helping the poor. Equally, I don't know whether I can already go into the details, but maybe this is what I had to say that really prompted or that really struck me while I was going through this project, this research project.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Vanessa. That's perfectly sufficient for now. I think I'll just cross over to the southern region and just hear from Lusungu what she has to say. Was there an aha moment? What surprised you, or what was outstanding?
Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone. This is the beauty of being last, I guess. I think what has been described in terms of what was found out in the field is very similar to what we found. We also, in fact, have one of the findings that people do not believe that they're doing philanthropy. In fact, a number of organizations, when we reached out to them, they said, no, we are not philanthropy organizations. They totally did not think they were. So yes, there is a problem. I would agree that people do need to understand that what they are doing is in fact philanthropy. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. My other aha moment is really about the fact that the numbers are massive. In fact, up to today, we are continuing to map Southern Africa philanthropy support organizations. Absolutely massive, and there's a lot of philanthropy that is going on that needs to be governized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lusungu, and thank you so much, everyone, for just giving us those brief highlights. I think they just go to show how much the word philanthropy is misunderstood or not understood in some sections. And I have seen that in most countries, they've started sort of localizing it so that, or simplifying it as just giving, so that we still get the core of the information that we want without the language barrier in terms of how we describe it. So just moving on, initially we thought that we were going to have like 4 presentations from all the speakers, but I felt that that would just tire everyone. So we'll just do it in a manner where we'll respond to specific questions. Then we'll also now bring all the participants to make their submissions if they have any questions, so that we just move forward. Otherwise, after one presentation, we might all be checking out or be sleeping. So I'll just come back to you, Maurice, for you to just describe to us in terms of the actual findings that you witnessed or collected in the field. You can touch briefly on the philanthropy support actors. Who are they according to what you were seeing? And elaborate a bit on the nature and trends of giving practices that you also witnessed in the Eastern region, in the East region.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Tarisai. So I was focusing on countries in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Burundi, Somalia, Southern Sudan, and Sudan. So out of all these countries, I identified out of the 500 lists that was shared by APN, we're able to narrow down to 130 from these countries and reach them through email, through follow-up, out of which 57 responded. So generally speaking, out of the 57 who and even from the ones who were looking out of the big number, majority were from, like the information that we looked, about 35 from Uganda, Kenya, another 24, Tanzania, 34, Rwanda, about 3 we were able to reach out to, Sudan, 5, Burundi, 3, Ethiopia, about 20, and Somalia. So I'm so happy that in this meeting, there's somebody from Somalia because despite of us writing emails, we were not able to succeed in securing an interview in Somalia, in Burundi, as well as in Sudan. But we're able to interview 57 people, a total from Kenya, 24, Rwanda, 2, Tanzania, Uganda, as well as Ethiopia. So what is coming out again from our study is that majority of the philanthropic support organizations identify themselves as national foundations, which was the majority at about 15%. And then the others identify themselves as INGOs and even NGOs. So what we were asking them, what is the registration? Like, how are you registered in your particular country? So a number of them were registered as national foundations or INGOs or even INGOs. They also trust, but the dominant one was national foundations and NGO. I don't know whether I've answered you in terms of the characteristics. Yeah, because again, what we came across was that most of them were either national NGOs or local foundations within the different countries. And as Dr. Tenga has also mentioned, there are also trusts which are existing, but if I could give percentages, the most dominant was the national foundations at more than 30%, the INGOs at 21%, NGOs at 30%, and then trusts, academic institutions, consulting organizations, other organizations at less than 5%. So, yeah, and again, maybe the other unique thing which we found out, especially from those who responded in Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and Tanzania, is that there was an organization which had been existing in Kenya since 1934 in terms of when you talk of the organizations when they were established. And the ones which were most recent was like in Ethiopia, established in 2005. But on average, in Kenya, most of the organizations established around 2001, in Rwanda around 2012, in Tanzania around 1997 on average, and Uganda. So most of them were more than 5 years of age. Maybe I'll stop there. Maybe if you would like to do a follow-up question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maurice. That's really helpful. We have a question in the chat where we are being asked about the working definition that you used for philanthropy support actors. Maybe you can respond to that before I move to the next speaker.
Yeah. So actually, when we're looking at the philanthropy support actors, we're looking at organizations that provide either they're contributing, supporting the ecosystem themselves in terms of providing funding, or others which are supporting philanthropy. So there are organizations that are kind of providing funding themselves. There are others which are providing support in terms of research as well as consulting. And then there are those ones which are kind of promoting networking of different organizations, providing a platform where different organizations can network and be able to gain best practices. So what we found out, and we went by the definition suggested, proposed by APN, and this includes organizations which exist to support philanthropy either by providing funding or by supporting the ecosystem or by creating an environment for networking, advocacy in terms of improving the working environment and the policies. Yeah.
Thank you, Maurice. Jeremy, I hope that really answers your question. And if anyone else has questions, just keep them coming in the chat box we'll be able to read them out and to ensure that the consultants do respond to each and every question. And those who are just joining us, may you please just ensure that you drop your name in the chat box, the organization that you're representing, and the country as well, so that we can put all that information in our database and acknowledge your presence as well. But just moving on, maybe I'll turn to Vanessa and just hear more on the general findings as you were doing your research in Central Africa on what the philanthropy support actors, what does that look like in your space? And elaborate more on the trends and nature of the giving practices as well.
Okay, so the mapping in Central Africa was mostly in Cameroon for the majority, Central African Republic, Chad, DRC Congo, Equatorial Guinea. And just like my colleague from Kenya said, it was quite difficult to reach out to most of the organizations from the list provided, either due to internet connectivity or numbers not really being available, or some who were actually reaching out but were unable to to respond to the questionnaires on time, or those who did not really understand the questions even after multiple explanations. So there were quite some challenges, but what we noticed is that there's a very diverse range of philanthropy support actors in Central Africa. And there are many categories: the community-based movement, the faith-based organizations, and the targets are really what govern the organizational goals. That's the reason of establishment of each organization is based on the social issue they want to address. But at the same time, all social issues are somehow like interconnected. So we found out that most of them were working together, like in collaboration, because someone working in the health sector is not going to have the same priorities like someone maybe working with children or women and girls. But if they interconnect or they exchange efforts, they can work together and be able to solve the systemic change in the community. We also noticed that there's a growing number of women engaging in philanthropy in Central Africa. As a matter of fact, on the people that we interviewed, 60% were women, female-led organizations, while 40% were male-led organizations. And being female, they just felt like, okay, they need to break down this discriminatory social institution that prevents them from engaging or having a position at the decision-making table. So they are now taking the lead. Many of the organizations in Central Africa are led by women, which is a very good thing to encourage. So we equally noticed that based on the trends and natures that were informed from the survey that we carried out, we noticed that many organizations are springing, they're using the social media, the explosion of social media now, to be able to collect funds or even solicit donations from family members. So they just use social media to collect funds to be able to carry out their activities. We also noticed that there are so many young people engaging in social entrepreneurship in Central Africa. They are coming up from their own resources from family members, not necessarily from funders, to be able to address social issues in their community. And they are using technology tools. They are making sure they're making good use of technology to be able to help facilitate fundraising activities. And this is good because this also serves as a catalyst for domestic giving, because when you're reaching out, maybe on your WhatsApp status, your contacts that are seeing what you're sharing, and they know what you're engaged into, and they can promptly reach out and give what they have to offer. It can be time, it can be skills, it can be talent, it can be money. So that's generally what I can say about the trend in Central Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. But in terms of figures, I think from East Africa, we heard that they started with a list of 500, and in the end, they were mapping about 130 actors.
Yes.
Do you have a figure in terms of what you saw or what you accumulated in your space?
Yes, concerning the figures from the list provided by APN, we had 34, and some were not responsive. I think more than half of the countries we reached out to, either through phones or through emails, were not responsive. So we in Central Africa, especially, we reached out, like we did, like I can call it door to door, or we had to go reach out to other organizations which were not present on the list to get information. So we could interview 20.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for that. And I think I'll quickly move on to the southern region and just sort of get an idea of the nature and trends and the giving practices as well that are coming out from the Southern Africa and the philanthropy support actors that were mapped as well. So I'll invite you, Lusungu, just to elaborate on that. Hello, Lusungu, can you hear us? Southern region, Lusungu.
Hello, hi.
Hi, I can hear you now.
Hi, sorry, somehow this load shedding in this country is causing problems with gadgets. Thank you very much. I think, like my previous colleagues, it was extremely difficult to get responses from organizations that we reached out. Nevertheless, we were able to reach out to a number of organizations. So for us, we covered, in terms of countries, we covered 12 countries, Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Madagascar, Mozambique, Namibia, Sao Tome and Principe, Seychelles, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And in terms of who these philanthropy support actors were, what we found were that it was a combination of organizations that see themselves as grant makers or funders. There were some that identify themselves as networks, associations, as well as movements. And then we also had community-based organizations. We had a couple of community foundations, and also we had some youth organizations that also came through. In terms of how these organizations, the reasons for establishment, they were varied. Some of these organizations told us that they were set up post very significant political periods or events. So a lot of them, for instance, in South Africa was post-apartheid, during the apartheid period, and so on. Organizations were also wanting to unite to voice the needs and issues of citizens around particular issues. Some were emerging as COVID hit, so they were converging around particular issues. There were organizations that also indicated that they wanted to mobilize resources for capacity development and so on to support communities, and also just strengthening capacities of communities in their different constituencies. In terms of country of operation, organizations that responded to the questionnaire that we sent out, most of them indicated that they were operating in their country. We had a couple of them that said that they were operating in 8 countries and 12 countries, specifically for KISA in South Africa. They indicated that they operate in more than 5 countries, the same with gender links. I don't know how much more time I have, but I just want to go very quickly to sources of funding. In terms of their sources of funding, we saw a mixed picture. There was about 12% that said that they got their funding from income generation, investments, and also from family. Then there was 3%, which was endowments, corporate social responsibility, and donations. 5% were saying governments as well as partnerships. A bigger percentage of about 80%, they were grants, donations, and membership fees, as well as contributions. There's a long list of the kinds, the areas of focus in terms of sectors. There were about 14, and in the interest of time, I will not go through them, but there's human rights, climate change, gender, rule of law, and so on and so forth. So there are about 14 areas they indicated that they were focusing on. I think maybe that is all I can say at this point. I'm happy to add any more information. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much, Lusongo, but still just chatting to you. So what then are some of the opportunities you think are out there that can really help us to build a more interconnected and coherent field?
Firstly, there is a growing willingness to give in Africa. And I think this was quite evident when COVID-19 hit. Also, there is an existence of a lot of networks and platforms, for instance, APN itself, as well as organizations like Tax Justice Network Africa, that provide an opportunity for philanthropy. There is also quite an increase in philanthropic activities of the private sector. A lot of corporates now have their own foundations, they are growing their CSRs, also a growing number of high net worth individuals. And by the way, that is one area where a lot of work needs to be done in terms of allowing those high net worth individuals or encouraging them to almost like work together. Another opportunity is technological advances. For instance, online giving. We were very surprised to hear that not many, in fact, there was perhaps one organization that had considered looking for funding online, but a lot of them were not doing that. But technological advances are there, they're coming through. And there's also a new trend of crypto philanthropy, which is a big opportunity because people are giving a lot in terms of cryptocurrencies. So those are some of the opportunities. There are more opportunities that we have in the report.
Thank you very much, Lusongo. This is surely helpful, and we are beginning to sort of understand some of the strategies that we can leverage on in terms of really ensuring that we have a brighter future in terms of promoting African philanthropy. And Maurice, if you can touch on that a bit and just tell us the opportunities that are out there so that we are not really as scattered as we are hearing at the moment. How do we make our field more coherent?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, maybe before I even come to that question, I would like to give you like an array of the information we found from the data, and then I will come back to the opportunities which are coming out of it. So for example, the different forms of philanthropy practiced by the different organizations. Individual giving, of course, has been there. There's foreign aid, there's diaspora giving, which was mentioned as growing. And in East Africa, there is an organization called WIDO, which is supporting people in diaspora to give back. Then, of course, there's the high net worth individuals, the foundations. Community philanthropy is also growing as a new trend, faith giving, as well as social investment, as just has been mentioned, as well as the corporate social responsibility. And then the other area which came out, which maybe we have neglected for a long time, is the cooperative movement. You know, like in East Africa and in Kenya in particular, the cooperative movements have existed for very many years. And people say that it is a sort of, it's not pure philanthropy as such, but people come together, it creates solidarity, and it brings people together to share and to, you know, like we have some of them called table banking, merry-go-round, and another, something which is also growing, and it was mentioned, is venture philanthropy. And then we also asked a few people about the various potential that they saw in these different streams of fundraising and the current status. And you can see that, again, foreign aid stands out, that it has a great potential, and even the current status, it is still bringing the most money. And then the other areas, like social investments, they have a great potential. There are statistics around that. There are still some areas which are people still don't understand very well, but they are so much in need of knowledge about it, especially venture philanthropy, cooperative movement, because for a long time, philanthropy tended not to include cooperative movements as such. And yet, we tend to see these ones as more sustainable models of development. And then the other area which has a great potential and is underutilized is the high net worth individuals. There are a lot of people who are rich in Africa, in Kenya in particular, but still their giving is not organized, as my sister just mentioned, and they're not known. So this is an area which requires further looking at. And then when it comes to specific opportunities, again, before even going to that opportunity again, in terms of finances, my sister has mentioned about cryptocurrency. We asked the organizations what percentage they received money from online platforms, and only 23% were receiving money from online platforms. So this again provides an opportunity for tapping money from that particular area. And now when it comes to some of the areas which require potential for, you know, growing as a response to the challenges that they mentioned, the issue of capacity building came out, especially for those who are interested in social investment, in venture philanthropy, and these new forms of philanthropy. So they were talking of the need for capacity development in those particular areas, and then the need to build on cultural expressions and practices to catalyze local giving, because as I mentioned earlier, almost every culture has their own expression of giving. So there's need to build on those cultural expressions to catalyze on giving so that people can give more. The issue of demonstrating impact, you know, when asking people like, why do you find it, why, in your opinion, do you feel local people would like to give to CSO or not? And what was coming out clearly was that many individuals do not feel like giving to civil society organizations in these countries simply because of the issue of impact. So there's need for this organization to demonstrate more impact for them to win the trust of their communities. And then there's also the opportunity on legislative intervention to incentivize philanthropy. People talked of tax incentives, but you know, these ones are also, there's a study which was carried out some years ago, which said that maybe it might not incentivize philanthropy as such. Maybe something else needs to be done. But it was also a recommendation that can we talk of legislation to incentivize philanthropy, and then education on CSR as well as philanthropy in total. And for those who are in the alumni sector, we are saying that how do we continue promoting a feeling of shared history for people who went to a former school, for them to galvanize them to give to their former schools. And then in other countries, especially in Uganda and Rwanda, the need to do close collaboration with government was really emphasized. That you know, in some of these areas, you need to conform to the environment in different areas so that you're able to flourish. Because if you are, let me say, you are an organization that is purely advocacy and very critical, using like the traditional advocacy, it might go wrongly with governments, and you might find yourself in deep waters. And then the other thing I think which was mentioned, and it has also just been mentioned, is in investment in technology, as well as investment in new philanthropy. And this is an area which is really rising, and maybe after my other colleagues have mentioned, I can also just share with you some of the areas which I spoke with some people in the area who are talking about, like, what is new philanthropy? What are the new areas, like what, from a global perspective, the various methods organizations are using to reach out to raise global funds. So they need to invest in new philanthropy, and finally, to promote infrastructure organizations that support like philanthropy. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maurice. This is really interesting, and I can't really wait to see the final synthesis that we'll have at the end that captures all this information coming from the 3 regions, and so that we can have a picture of what is really happening in the part of our continent. But for now, I'll just hear from Vanessa. What are some of the opportunities that we should be looking out for, or what are the things that we should be doing to ensure that our sector is more coherent and we're working together closely? Yes, Vanessa, can you go ahead if you can hear me? Let's just say that Vanessa is sort of having a technical glitch, but I'll just open it up now to all the participants. If you have specific questions for our researchers, may you now go ahead and ask, so that we get some of the responses and we see how we can finalize this report and have a correct synthesis of the report that we can share with everyone. So you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can even pop it in the chat and I will be able to pick it up.
I can see Vanessa is trying to come back.
Vanessa.
Yeah, sorry, I had some internet issues. So I'm back right now.
Okay. Did you get the question, or I can repeat?
Yeah, talking about the opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, actually, what we discovered was like an opportunity for growing philanthropy in Africa. There's more awareness now about the notion of philanthropy. So, and we can also use the growth of youth engagement in philanthropy as an opportunity. Many more youths are engaging as social entrepreneurs, and that's a fertile ground, I think, for philanthropy. The explosion of social media use has also helped raise awareness about philanthropy, and many more communities can equally benefit from the growth of philanthropy in Africa. Then, from what we got from the respondents when we were doing the study, is that what they mentioned is, in as much as philanthropy is growing in Africa, if it is not well structured, it is not going to grow in the pace that we would love it to be. So if it's structured and the environment is conducive, then there will be more awareness on the social causes and challenges like food insecurity, agriculture innovation, gender inequality, humanitarian crisis, water, health, and sanitation issues. They equally mentioned that for the growth of philanthropy in Africa, that the growth of philanthropy in Africa is very important, and we should equally really invest in growing philanthropy in Africa, because it's going to like break indifference and frustration barriers, and more especially stimulate and structure the culture of giving in Africans, because giving is already enshrined in the DNA of most Africans. But how do we structure it in a way that it promotes tolerance and acceptance amongst each other, so that it can be an enhanced progress in the development of philanthropy in Africa? That's basically what I could get as opportunities.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I think, my dear participants, from what we are hearing from all the three speakers, is that the field is vast, it's far and wide, but there are also gaps that have been identified in terms of mapping the philanthropy support actors, where in some areas we are hearing that there were non-responsive, adequate information was not acquired, or even in terms of understanding who is out there. So in terms of helping us as APN to really validate and to finalize this report, I would want to just hear from you, like, what are some of the effective strategies that we can employ at this stage to ensure that we identify more players in the sector?
The question is directed to me, Tarisai, or anybody.
No. I've just gone back. The audience has been quiet. I'm sure they have heard you. Maybe Caesar, I'll just pick on you. What are some of the strategies that we can just employ to ensure that we are having a more comprehensive catalog where we have all the information in terms of who is out there, the philanthropy support actors in the field?
I don't know whether I will be off, but really for me, I just think it's largely how we build on this, because the research is giving us a good place to begin. How we share data, how we continuously update that, but also to what end? For me, that's also another big question. As we map out the philanthropy actors, how do we continuously sharpen the end game of us mapping that particular ecosystem? But also, I also like and I can say, I don't know if it's Maurice or Mondi who's chatting here, but also the appreciation that we are as diverse as we can be. Even when you talk about philanthropy ecosystem, there are people who are coming into it with different, angles. But yes, I just think it's more of having a way of a better way. I'm not saying that what we have is bad, but I think we are beginning, but a better way of mapping this and connecting it to a broader picture. I don't know that I have answered your question, but you can refresh.
Thank you, Cesar. That's surely helpful. I just needed someone to really get us started in terms of hearing the voices from the participants. So please go ahead, make your contributions or ask specific questions, whether it's aligned to the southern region, to the central region, or to the eastern region. We have all our three consultants who are able to really support us with any additional information that you might have, or even further recommendations on how we can really finalize our report would really help. I think, Maurice, I'll just come back to you. I think you had said that you have further opportunities that you would have wanted to share. So maybe you can just touch on one of them as we wait for our participants to either share questions, or we can sort of get to the point where we begin to wrap this up.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to just mention a bit about not only from the respondents from the East African region, but even respondents from organizations that are covering a big area, like discussions with people who have the trend at a global perspective, but they're also coming into the region. So some of the, aside from the traditional key actors that we know, the communities, the individual givers, the high net worth individuals, as well as corporates, we are now seeing social impact investment organizations coming into space, and new types of grant makers. And I guess you have seen in television where you see like this new type of philanthropist trying to support competition, young people pitching, and then they get support to support their inventions. And then the tools which are being used already, somebody, my sister mentioned the issue of cryptocurrency, but we are seeing support beyond cash. We are seeing people going beyond bequests, like, sometimes we ask people to, can you leave something to support in memory of someone, it is happening, but it's also people are going beyond that. We are seeing people strengths, like for this social impact investment, there are organizations that are providing like loans, social impact tools. We are seeing, increased interest in measuring impact. For a long time, charity, you're just given donations and there was no asking or following up on whether there's impact. So there is increasing interest by most big donors, as well as social impact investors, and even modern philanthropists. They want to see really you're able to demonstrate impact. So there's a lot of emphasis on impact measurement. There's the issue of, again, also look at cross-border issues. Like right now, we had a discussion with a respondent from one of these large foundations in Kenya, and they are saying that what they're trying to look at is providing large grants which can address big issues instead of giving to small organizations. And this is something which even the international organizations are trying to do in terms of even the European Union, like in the last 1 year. Yeah, that they've done collaboration with the civil society organizations. They have mapped the priority areas, and then they came up with some calls which are bulk. So they are looking for big organizations which have got systems and structures to be provided with a large grant, and then these ones can manage the sub grants. And then in terms of targets, one of the things which is also coming out very, very clearly, that in addition to giving out to social benefit organizations, the traditional NGOs, we're also seeing many philanthropists giving to social enterprises. And why are they doing this? Because they feel social enterprises have got more sustainability and more, more returns on investment. And then finally, when it comes to beneficiaries, we are not only looking at poverty alleviation, which has been the traditional area, but we're also looking at investors or philanthropists looking at environmental improvement. We talk of climate change, strengthening civil society. It is still not very wide, but it's an area which probably we can find out a way. How can we encourage these givers to support governance structures of CSOs? Most of them just want to give for direct impact, but it is also growing, giving for, yeah. So those are some of the issues I wanted to mention with regard to trends from the research. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maurice. I think everyone will be able to read those insights in the synthesis report that we will share, and we are just hoping that you will still be able to contribute to it so that we have a comprehensive directory of the information that we can all use that really highlight the philanthropic support actors in our region. Vanessa, do you have any burning thoughts that you would want to share at this point?
Well, what I can share is that concerning Central Africa, for example, and in particular, we are not as advanced in philanthropy as other sub-regions. If you've noticed, even the number of philanthropy support actors in South Africa and East African regions are more than in Central Africa. So maybe if we want to really work together in a collaboration and bring in more partners, because for sure they are not on the direction, not because they are not working, but maybe because it wasn't easy to reach out to them, or it wasn't easy for them to understand what we really want from them. So it is good that we, as networks like APN or EAPN, we should find a way to get closer and to see how we can have them jump into the train of philanthropy, because it concerns the whole of Africa, not just sub-regions in silos, but it's something we have to do collectively, just like you said at the beginning of this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. If anyone on this call is from the Central region, or anyone has really effective connections, please do share that information, so that we are already identifying a huge gap in terms of the information that is coming from Central Africa. Though we know that philanthropy do exist but there are still gaps in terms of information that was collected. So we'd really want to hear more voices from Central Africa, because I assume that there are still many more actors that are out there that we can still engage. At this stage, I see a hand up. Mr. Mariki, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. Am I heard enough?
We can hear you, but there are echoes.
There is a lot of okay. What I know.
Mr. Mariki, please go ahead. As we just wait for Mr. Mariki to come back, I'll just invite Lusungu. Lusungu, do you have any burning thoughts or anything that you would want to share at this point as we go towards wrapping up our conversation?
I think can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I will stand down.
Continue, Lusungu, I'll come later.
All right. No, I just wanted to share on the strategies. When we were looking at what are the strategies and having really understood where PSAs are coming from.
This must be the load shedding that Lusungu was talking about. I think.
Can you hear me?
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Is it the load shedding, Lusungu? We can hear you now.
Yeah, it says my internet is unstable.
All right.
Maybe what I should do is I should switch off my camera. Yeah, I was saying that I wanted to just quickly share our proposed strategies, having really listened to what's going on and mapped and read up on what's happening in Southern Africa. So we have come up with 4 key strategic entry points for improving philanthropy as well as collaboration. And the first one is connectedness. And I will go into a little of detail on that one. The second one is sustainability. The third one is complementarity. And the fourth one is the knowledge base. On the connectedness, we were saying a strategy that needs to be put forward is to support the building of a national level PSA architecture. So at national level, really just understanding what does that architecture look like and support it, as well as collaboration amongst the philanthropy infrastructure organizations. We talked about high net worth individuals. There's need to increase not only the numbers, but also to know who they are, and so that they can work together. And peer learning at national level as well in terms of connectedness. On sustainability, my brother mentioned about impact, very important to support PSAs in how they demonstrate impact of their work around sustainability. Looking also at the capabilities to be able to deliver on programs effectively. Fundraising also being very important in terms of sustainability, but also institutional building to strengthen the organizations themselves in terms of ability to deliver. On complementarity, a few things there. Encouraging joint working between PSAs, whether it is projects, advocacy campaigns, but there's also need, we believe, in understanding who are the various players at national level so that they know who's doing what at national level. We already talked about peer learning in the previous one. And the research in terms of the knowledge base, really more work that needs to be done around the state of philanthropy, the philanthropy support ecosystem, because it looks as if it is very much focused on those that are giving fund and supporting, but really looking at the other types of support organizations. So that's what I wanted to share in brief. Thank you.
Thank you, Lusongo. Let me quickly jump over to Mr. Mareki. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Tarisai. Actually, Vanessa has talked a little bit of what I wanted to say, but we know the consultants, they implemented this within a specified time frame, and they could only do within that framework. But now we want to ask them that the list of PSAs that we have developed together, do they think it is exhaustive if they look into their region, or there is still a work to be done? And if there is a work to be done, to what extent, so that we can know what is required down the road to have the list, to have our list at least more comprehensive to the 80% plus. That's what they feel. I wanted to hear from the consultant. If they feel there is more to add into the list and to make it more comprehensive. Thank you.
Okay, maybe if I go.
Please.
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, is to agree with good chance that, and I think my sister from South Africa said that it's still a wide area, and the mapping is something which, in my opinion, should be continuous, because there are so many organizations who are doing philanthropy in different areas, either supporting in terms of networks, or even associations, or even academia, CSO supporting communities to increase the effectiveness and impact. So using the WINKS methodology, and even some of, because of this study, we're just able to some of them were just able to mention at one moment, like what are some of the networks that you belong to? And they're just mentioning the networks and the benefit they get from those networks. But it provides an opportunity to even further investigate those networks. So for example, in the region, for the countries which were, the people we spoke with, they were able to identify almost 50 networks which were not there, which had not been mentioned before. So in the report, we just mentioned them in terms of their names, but they can still be investigated further. And again, the other thing from the list that you shared, there tended to be dominance of national NGOs, international NGOs, and organizations that are more formalized or organized from a Western point of view. Maybe we could also have a look at more organizations which are more indigenous in nature, organizations and even movements, even community-based organizations which have really grown from local philanthropy, and investigate how they have been able to come to where they are. So that is in response to the question you just asked. But then there are also some areas which we can recommend for further study. For example, an empirical study on the various streams that are coming in. Like I mentioned to you earlier, people are talking about individual giving, they're talking about social investment, but for this, we are just able to just, just mention, because this study was more to a large extent qualitative, so you cannot 100% generalize the findings to represent those regions. So maybe this is an area which requires more empirical study. And then the other area which we even spoke with in a recent workshop was the issue to focus on giving by different faiths and cultures, and see how, is there any variations? There are some unique areas. We talked about legacy giving. In the West, we have seen people give in terms of legacy, and they contribute to support maybe charitable projects in Africa. And in Africa, we've also seen mostly politicians and even people naming schools after their parents or their fathers as a way of legacy giving. So these are areas that I think can still be studied to strengthen this mapping of the PSAs in the region and in Africa. So it is still an area which can still grow. We cannot say that we are finished, but it is something, we have something right now which provides a basis, but it is something which can be grown further. Yeah, thank you.
I'm not sure if Vanessa or Lusungu, you would want to add on to that.
Just a very few, because he has already said almost everything. And like he said, it's a continuous process. I am speaking particularly for Central Africa, where the time frame or the time limit for the research do not permit me to reach out to as many PSA as we would have loved to. And like he also mentioned, on the list, there are many more organizations, philanthropy support organizations doing tremendous work, but that are not on that list. So we need to still continue working, digging to see how best we can reach out to them and get what they are doing as work and how they can be collaboration for a more solid philanthropy infrastructure, especially with many more organizations coming from this particular region, which is still lagging behind, I think, from data. Because even when you research online, when you're doing the online, like a desktop review, even data on Central Africa is quite complicated to access. So I think we should go further so that we can be like the database for philanthropy support actors for Central Africa, because it's quite difficult online to have like solid information about philanthropy support actors in Central Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. And Lusungu, anything, or I can proceed?
You can proceed, but I think everything has been said by Vanessa and Maurice. We are continuing to map still. Like I said at the beginning, my aha was, gosh, it is massive. And so we are continuing, it is work in progress. And if we have a directory in Africa, it's a matter of updating it and following up. We discovered some organizations when COVID hit, they closed. We couldn't find them, and we eventually found out that they actually closed and so on. So it's really work in progress.
Thank you so much, Lusungu. I think from what we have really heard from this afternoon, what is really possible is just to say collectively, we can surely identify more philanthropy actors, and it begins with us and each and every one of us who is on this call today, because this is just a key way of growing African philanthropy, and it will surely catalyze and move forward the development that we want to see. And as APN, we are really committed to really strengthening the infrastructure of the philanthropy actors. So it's something that we'll continue doing, engaging different actors and just calling on you all to really support us to have a clear catalog, to have clear information. But at this stage, I think I'll just call back Dr. Stigmata Tenga so that she can give us a few remarks as we sort of wrap up and conclude.
Wow, Tarisai, I thank you for inviting me back. I don't have anything to say really than requesting everyone who's here and urging that this is our infrastructure and this is our work. So we really need to continue to find each other so that we can connect better. We are not developing the document to be archived at APN. We are not looking for databases. We have never done that. We are working to have ability to create an inventory which every one of us can go into and find different kind of relationships. And I'm so happy and glad to hear that we are able to map so many other relationships that should come as part of the actors in this infrastructure that can scaffold different forms and manifestations of philanthropy in the continent. And let's keep the ball rolling. It starts at the community level. It will grow to the national level, regional level, and at the continental level before we link it to the global level. So this is our responsibility, I believe, to be able to know who is a next door neighbor. What is the next door neighbor doing when it comes to developing philanthropy? That is the aim. So we should really not look for the end of this activity, because new emerging philanthropists, if not individuals, then organizations will be initiated every day, as we have seen the mushrooming of different forms and types. But on the other side, there are those existing organizations who have always been there working to help us to generate data. I'm seeing Epic Africa here represented, helping us to provide platforms where our voice and action would be shared and heard. I'm seeing our members, East Africa Philanthropy Network, those who will be helping communities to understand how they can accumulate assets. So I'm seeing many people here, from the Urgent Action Fund to the community foundations are represented by some in Tanzania and some in other places, NGOs and so forth. I think our aim is to build big and strong army for us to be able to make philanthropy a driving force. Driving force and a driver that would enable changes in structures which are not helping us to thrive, but also help us to address systems which are not helping philanthropy to thrive. So colleagues will continue to come back to all of us. If we develop this directory and make use of it in terms of connections, in terms of collaboration, it will be of no use. So let's cherish collaborations. Let's really put all our efforts in connecting through all these efforts that are in place. Together we can build as one. In Kiswahili, we say kidole kimoja hakiui chawa. You cannot kill a lace with one finger, but also there is a lot of, dignity in influencing our own destiny. So let's work together, and it needs the multiple us to be able to respond and build this common voice for a transformative agenda to change the way development is done and make sure that we are building homegrown solutions to our problem. So again, thanks to our partners who are joining us, and thank you for everyone. I'm seeing Zambia Governance Foundations here and many other people, but over and above all this, I really thank our researchers, colleagues from Ungoro Chieta through Lusungu and Lydia, colleagues Maurice, Vanessa, and colleagues who were not able to be here. Let's continue to build this together, because this is, again, a way of building the awareness of what is happening in the philanthropy space to the researchers. So let's continue to get the ball rolling. Let's continue to be working together. But we thank you so very much for bringing the wealth of information you have brought to us. I only promise that I'll do on behalf of my colleagues who are working sleepless nights to make sure this product is in place, is that we are going to put together all this information that was generated through our researchers and through us today into a synthesis report, which will, keep the conversation and dialogue active in all our different spaces. So we have a consultant, I think, who have joined us, who is going to put all this together. Bohela. So really, let's continue to connect. You will hear from us. I really hope most of you have written your emails, especially those who are not in our database. Please write your email so that we can continue to connect. Giving Tuesday, thank you. And everyone, thank you so very much. We send love and care to all of you. Thank you.
I was temporarily kicked out, Doc. I hope you are not looking for me.
I want you to close because I've thanked everyone and I'm so excited that we have so many friends here. So very much. And even those who are not here will find ways to disseminate this information. And also we'll work together to see that we are getting feedback from you on how you have developed this information further and how are you connecting with this information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much all, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I think it has really been great. If we did not contribute anything, it's well, good and enough. I think the listening part was really important. You have things to really take away, food for thought, and just come back to us with your suggestions, recommendations, or even to say there's this philanthropy support actor that you left, that would really be helpful. And just to say that we are still and will continue to welcome more organizations to be APN members. So please, if you're interested in becoming a member of APN, just go on the APN website. There are forms to fill in there and all the information is there. Or you can get in touch directly via info@apn.org. Thank you so much. We wish you a blessed evening, morning, or afternoon.
Kaisai.
Yes.
Kaisai,
Yes.
kindly asking if maybe people can just turn on their cameras for us to have a joint picture just to keep memory.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, the most important bit and exciting bit of this meeting is a request for each and every one of you to just turn on your cameras so that we can just take a group picture.
Mine is on.
Please turn on your cameras. We'll just want to see you all. Mwila, should we give you the widest smiles? What should we do?
Yeah, please. The most brightest smile that we've never given.
Unfortunately,
All
my
right.
colleague
We
Lydia.
can quickly get it. Are we?
Yeah, my
Okay.
colleague Lydia is
Ready?
not here. She's been kicked out by load shedding.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Mila. My smile was about to expire. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.